Hello and welcome to another match from the Dominion League, this time against Russ2. This is the feature game primarily because we explore some endgame ideas that will help you to improve at this wonderful game. The other reason is because both players buy the Imperial Envoy, a new card found from Rising Sun, and I believe we haven't paid too much attention to that card yet. Costs 5, plus 5 cards, plus 1 buy, plus 2 debt. Let's have a look at the kingdom now. There are plus actions in Farmhands, Ghost Town, and Blessed Village. There's plus cards in Slay, Figurine, and Imperial Envoy. There's plus buy in Figurine and Imperial Envoy. There is no gain, and there is no trashing. We also have an aqueduct, and we have a star chart. The star chart is going to be very important, given that we have no trashing. The extra reliability will be very much appreciated. My initial thought looking at the kingdom was that you can draw your deck. There are enough draw options here, especially with Imperial Envoy drawing 5 cards for you. And there are sufficient villages. Farmhands is probably the best of the lot. However, it wasn't clear to me what I wanted to do after I drew all my cards. Do I want to play many bards? Do I want to play many giants? Do I just want to play gold and silver? There are points on the gold and silver piles because of the aqueduct, so it may be a little more attractive than usual. I thought we'll figure it out as the game goes along. Let's see how we build. Building is relatively straightforward in this kingdom. My opponent starts, and they start with a silver on 3 coin. I should mention also, general rule of thumb, if there's quarry and plus buy in the kingdom, build an engine. General rule of thumb. Not all the time that is going to hold true, but we have quarry and plus buy here, so I am going to build the engine deck. And I don't like the silver for my opponent because we have no trashing and quarry already brings on the price of the action cards for you. Sure, there's a point of the aqueduct, but I am not going to fight for that point. I would have preferred something like Slay or Star Chart. On 4, I am going to go for the quarry straight away. I need my envoys, I need my villages. My opponent gets a quarry as well. On 3, I will get the star chart. I'm not getting that silver. I'm not getting an extra stop card if I don't need to. This star chart isn't the greatest here. It'll allow me to top deck the quarry, which is helpful. I see it straight away. My opponent, they get to 5. Thanks to the silver, they buy an Imperial Envoy. I also get to 5 via the quarry. Also, I didn't need the cost reduction because I have a heap of copper in my hand. This is a bit unfortunate, but we'll make it work. This is going to be an Imperial Envoy for me as well. My opponent now finds their quarry, and they get a very good turn 3 and 4, I would describe. And I only say that because Farmhands is in the kingdom. Farmhands has this unique ability. When you buy it or gain it, you can set aside an action card from your hand, play it at the start of your next turn. So with both Imperial Envoys in my opponent's deck, they can play one. If they draw into the other, or if they collide, they'll just buy a Farmhands. They'll probably find the quarry because Imperial Envoy draws 5 cards, and then their next turn starts with plus 5 cards again. All of that is complements of the unique ability of Farmhands. An excellent improvement over Farming Village. I am not so lucky. I just have 3, and I could get a Slay here. I considered it. Instead, I go for the Ghost Town. The reason is because I can top deck my Envoy, and I can draw an extra card with the Ghost Town. I'm hoping to see a heap of cards on my next turn, one of which is likely to be the Quarry, and then I can buy another Envoy, maybe a village, and keep building from there. I should mention too, I wasn't sure when or if at all to buy Overlords in this kingdom. The Imperial Envoy puts you into debt already, and I wanted a quarry before I bought an Overlord. Maybe even I want 2 quarries before I buy an Overlord. It wasn't clear to me at all. I eventually end up playing the whole game without an Overlord. I don't know if that's right or not. Anyways, Ghost Town, Star Chart allows me to top deck the Envoy, but we pass it back to my opponent now, turn 5. They don't have Star Chart, but, Envoys float to the top anyway. They find their quarry, repay their 2 debt, buy a farmhands. That means, yep, there's the other envoy in hand, and they get a slay. So they are going along swimmingly here. Draw 1 from the ghost town, draw 5 more from the envoy. We have 5 2-buys with a quarry in play. This could be another envoy and a village. I do get the other envoy, and here I do not get the farmhands because there's nothing to set aside. Instead, I go for a blessed village, take the boon straight away. That allows me to draw an extra card. On these star chart turns, I am going to top deck envoy almost exclusively. I think that is much better than top decking a village. Even if actions are drawn dead, there's farmhands to offset that downside, and I get to cycle. I get to flip the deck more quickly. If I play the envoy, if I play the village, I have to wait a turn before I flip the deck. And when you flip the deck, you could top deck something nice with the star chart. So it's important to try to shuffle your deck, flip the deck as soon as possible, especially with star chart in play. All right. Lead envoy for my opponent, thanks to their farmhands buy on the last turn. Play their farmhands. Outcomes are slay for a couple of horses. They do not see the other envoy. That's fine. 6 and 2 buys with a quarry in play is still plenty. They get a second quarry. I like the second quarry. And they get a blessed village. This is an excellent boon for them. They have exactly 4 cards on top of their deck, one of which is an Imperial Envoy. So what is going to happen here is they'll discard 3, leave the Envoy on top, Star Chart. Oh, they don't have Star Chart. Haha. Star Chart would have top decked a village. But they'll top deck the Envoy for sure here. Alright. Lead Envoy for me. Dead Envoy, of course. I do find the quarry, which is important. I get a second quarry and I get a slay. I could have picked up farmhands to set aside that blessed village. I didn't because I know my ghost town is going into play this turn. I know there's an Imperial Envoy in the bottom 4 cards. I do not need the extra actions. I don't need that safety net right now. Star chart allows me to top deck another envoy. Again, it's important to just go through the deck, get as many iterations in as possible, offset the bad ones, make use of the good ones. Great turn for my opponent. Double quarry comes down after an envoy play. Arguably, they want more buys here. They go for a farmhands that sets aside a horse. They could have played on and tried to find the other envoy purely for the plus buy. This is a safer, more conservative option. And what do they do on the 6? It is another envoy for them. So they have 3 envoys, I just have 2. Out comes my ghost town. We play 1 envoy and we play the second one. This is fine. We draw the whole deck. It would have been nice to play the slay, but it's fine. I'll live. I will live, especially because I will buy a farmhands here. Now I will need the actions for next turn. Farmhands effect will come into play. I'll set aside the village, top deck an envoy for next turn. And here I go for a figurine at this point. It's a bit of draw, arguably. It could have been another envoy. I didn't like how much debt I was getting into. That's why I avoided the 3rd envoy. Plus, the size of the deck doesn't really warrant the need for another envoy. It's still relatively small. And when I say relatively small, count the number of stop cards that you have. I have started with 10. I put in a couple quarries. That's 12. Maybe you count Ghost Town as a stop card. I'm not sure. So I have 12 cards. You draw 5 of them. You have 2 Imperial Envoys. Here, I drew the whole deck. So I didn't really see the need to put another big draw card like the Envoy, and I rather have the extra buy from the figurine. Still have 1 more buy. It's going to be a Blessed Village. Gets me a trash of an estate, which I like. We'll take that straight away. Farmhands and Imperial Envoy is guaranteed for me. My opponent has a bad turn here. They go ahead and they buy a Ghost Town. And finally they buy a Star Chart. They've been doing really well without the Star Chart so far. Okay, so Farmhands allows me to play my Blessed Village. So I'm guaranteed actions. I top deck the Imperial Envoy. That will come into play sooner rather than later. We want to see as many cards as possible here. And we see the whole deck. Not only that, we'll also be able to get a plus buy from the figurine, and we'll be able to set aside our horse with his farmhands to set up for next turn. Horse is set aside, will be played next turn. I'll top deck an envoy with my star chart. I get another figurine for another plus buy. I have 2 buys, 1 coin, get another village. This is an excellent time to get this boon. I make use of the buy straight away. Here I could get another envoy, a giant maybe. Now is the time to start thinking about what you want to play after drawing all of your cards here. So I get another blessed village. That'll allow me to gain a 4 cost next turn. I think about Bard, think about Envoy, and I settle on the giant eventually. I think that this giant is fine, but I will buy subsequent giants, and we'll have a chat about those when it comes up. Envoy goes on top of the deck. Let's see what my opponent gets up to. They should have a good turn here, given that they stalled last turn. And they do see the whole deck with their 3x envoys. 2 quarries in play. Farmhands now to set aside a horse. Good for them. What do they do with the rest of the money? Another farmhands to set aside another horse. What's next? I'm expecting figurine for them. They go for 2 giants instead. Said, all right, so we're entering this part of the game where we attack each other with giants. Resolve the boon. Discard a copper. I thought this was a regular envoy. No, this envoy is imperial, so you can't gain it with the boon. I gain a 3rd quarry here. That is dubious. In retrospect, I don't think that 3rd quarry offers you much. I did it just to make the imperial envoys and the giants free. The difference between 0 and 1 coin is negligible here, I think. Start off with the Imperial Envoy, and here's where we almost have problems, but I do find an Imperial Envoy to get me through the end of the deck here. Populate the deck with horses. Use star chart again. This time I top deck the treasure because I'd like to leave a horse on top of the deck. It doesn't matter because the figurine will draw through everything anyway. Play my single giant, get a couple buys and a coin each from these figurines, and we put everything in play. So we have 9, 5 buys, 3 quarries down, farmhands to set aside a horse. That's good for me. I consider and do get another envoy. It's important to get another envoy there. Again, you have to think about now the size of your deck for consistency purposes. We're entering that stage of the game where 1 bad turn likely means you fall behind and you lose. So how many stop cards do I have? I have Slay Giant, that's 2. I start with 10, 12. I have 3 quarries and 2 figurines now. That's what, 15, 16 cards, stop cards. So I need to be able to draw all of those. And I just bought another giant. So I probably need a 3rd Imperial Envoy. Go for a 2nd giant, and I still have this heap of buys here, and I don't know what to do with it. 9 and 2 buys. I'm thinking about province, but I choose to hold off on the province for now. I want more buys, so I get another figurine and I get another giant. So I am stretching the capacity of the deck a little bit here. Now the stop card count is up to maybe, what, 16, 17, and I just have 3 envoys and 3 figurines, so it's tight, but with a good draw, and I'm guaranteed to start with an Imperial Envoy, I should be able to see everything. We'll see how it works out. My opponent kicks off here, plays their giant 1, giant 2. They trash one of my blessed villages, so this is something we have to be concerned about as well. 14 and 2 buys for them. Here, they didn't draw through the whole deck. They go for a gold and they start in on the provinces. So we have the end game now to worry about. My opponent is ahead by 9 points, quite a few points. They have a couple from the aqueduct, I trash an estate, and now they have the province. We'll see how much money I get up to. I have a couple giants as well. So lead horse from the farmhands. Here's the Imperial Envoy. And here's a horse. And alright, here's where we start to have problems. I didn't see any other Imperial Envoy. I saw 3 giants, which is what I was drawing into anyway. So the turn is not horrible, but it's also not great because the Imperial Envoy is not just cards for me, it's plus buy. And I need the plus buy to get more villagers, more envoys cheaply. So we stop here, unfortunately. This giant attack is going to be largely ineffective because my opponent can choose the target via star chart. They opt to have farmhands go down. And here, this is a misplay. I think I didn't want to discard the Imperial Envoy for a buy here because I wanted to buy farmhands to set it aside for next turn. I say it's a misplay because I didn't count the amount of money that I had. If I discarded that Envoy, I would have had 16 and 2 buys. Double Province here is a strong play. Anything that's not double province is not really a strong play. I just get a single province and a farmhands and pass it back to my opponent. I also knew that there was another Imperial Envoy in the bottom 9 cards it was. So it is reasonably likely that I kick off on the next turn, but it's not guaranteed because there still are stop cards in there. So you could think about that, whether or not I should have discarded the Envoy or I should have kept it and used it, saved it via farmhands for use on the next turn. That is also something that's not clear to me. My opponent sees their whole deck again here. They have another good turn. They're even able to top deck horses, I believe. No, they draw through everything. We get our curse from their giant. And they should have about the same amount of money as last turn. They do 14 and 4 buys. They empty the farmhands, buy a gold, and they buy another province. So they are quite far ahead. And I'm a little bit scared at this point. They've set aside 2 horses with the farmhands. They have a couple gold in the deck alongside the giants. Maybe they're close to triple province. I'm not sure. And I'm not sure what I could pull off here as well. I have to top deck the Imperial Envoy here if I'm going to have a good turn. So we play 2, we play all 3 of them, that's great. And we don't quite get through the whole deck, but this is the important part. Or these are the important cards of the deck. I give my opponent a curse. I see actions with these figurine plays, and I get to top deck some action cards as well, I believe, here by triggering the shuffle. My deck doesn't have that much money. 14 and 7 buys, that's not great. I know my opponent only has 4 buys, 3 from the Envoy plus the default one. They don't have any figurines, so I can lower piles comfortably here. What I choose to do on the 6 and 6 buys is get a duchy. I need the points. And then I have, well, a lot of buys. This is an excellent boon. I get to top deck a village, and I'll get a top deck an Envoy as well. I go in here for increasing my payload, so I buy a couple more giants. Still have a couple buys. Buy another village, just in case one of them gets trashed. I might need the actions. And I should buy an Imperial Envoy here, but I don't, and that is bad. Look at the size of the deck now. Now I have, what, 2 provinces in, the duchy, a curse. My stop card count is probably over 20 at this point, and I only have 3 envoys. It's not, make it make sense, you know? It doesn't add up. I don't have the draw necessary to see all of the giants, play all of the giants. I should have bought an Imperial Envoy on that turn. That is a crucial misplay, crucial inaccuracy, blunder even, to use chess terms. Okay, my opponent could have a bad turn. They trash one of my figurines. I'm not happy about it, but I'm not entirely unhappy about it either. They only have 11 though. Still, single province is very good for them, and they buy a ghost town for next turn. And they buy a blessed village. They get an excellent boon as well, so they're quite reliable for next turn, I would say. Alright, let's see what we can come up with. Can we see all of our giants? Can we? Here's one of them. See? This is why you wanted the Envoy. The Imperial Envoy. Terrible turn, terrible turn. I don't even get an extra buy from the figurine here. And we just have to stay content with a couple of duchies, pass it back to my opponent. Double duchy, double province, I think is way too easy for them to get, so I don't want to touch the province pile. We stay a little bit ahead of them on points, so they we exactly tied on points right now, so they can't just empty piles and win. They need to score as well. They see most of their deck. They have less giants, less top cards, so they're doing really well. They have 16 and 4 buys. Double province is game winning here. I was a little hopeful when I saw they led with the Blessed Village, but they went back around for the 2 provinces. And that is effectively game over here. My only hope is if I could see all the giants miraculously and all the extra buys that I have. The 6 of them, I believe. I have 3 from envoys, 2 from figurines. One of them just got trashed. And maybe then, but I probably need to stack the deck for that to happen. And look, the envoys are even deeper in the deck than I thought. This is not going to work out for me here. I let my opponent play a few cards just to see if they have it. Turns out they kind of have it. So I click X here. My misplay at the end by not picking up another envoy may have come back to bite me. Either way, I should have bought the envoy. Now I know, and now you know. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.